Next up, we have panel 3, and Ms. Usha is going to introduce you.
We're starting with our third panel. The road not taken. Can we have some chairs, please, on the stage? Can we have someone putting up chairs on the stage, please? Yeah, thank you. The road not taken. Is India ready for alternative education? Chairing the panel is Mrs. Anu Monga, the head of Bengaluru International School. Mrs. Anu Monga, she's a member of the International Bracelet Organization, Asia Pacific Regional Committee and Heads Council. She's also on the board of the Next Frontier Inclusion and Common Ground Collaboration. She is a founder member of the Association of International Schools of India, TESI, and has been serving as a chair since its inception in 2005. A warm welcome to you, Mrs. Anu Monga. Can you put your hands together for Mrs. Anu Monga and the other panelists who are just joining us here? And on our panelists, Nurain Fazal, Managing Trustee, CEO and co-founder of InVenture Academy. She has a Master of Science degree in Management from Boston University. Nurain worked with IBM and Reuters for a period of 10 years in a frontline and managerial capacity. Post a period of introspection about the future, Nurain returned to India in 2003 after 12 years across the UK, USA, Middle East, Australia, and the Greater China region. Mrs. Anu Monga, can we have you on the stage, please? A warm welcome to Mrs. Anu Monga, who's chairing the panel. In order to be a citizen with a say in the way the country is developing, the result is an educational institution that incorporates much of what Nurain believes education must be about and promises robust, lifelong development of the individual. Nurain Fazal believes that individuality is to be celebrated, not discouraged. Everyone is capable of being a lifelong learner and employing the skills and knowledge they've acquired. Everyone has the potential to achieve their life's ambition, beliefs that translate into core values at InVenture Academy. A warm welcome to you, Nurain. Can we applaud for the panelists, please? We have Mr. Manas Mehrotra, whose leadership qualities found their true manifestation to his emergence as an entrepreneur par excellence with a vision for the betterment of the society. He is a Bachelor of Law and alma mater of Babson College, USA, with an MBA Entrepreneurship. He has played a pivotal role in the success of Greenwood High School. Since he took the reins, the school has grown many folds year on year. The school has won more than 9 national awards in excellence in last 3 years. He provides vision and strategic direction to the school. Manas has always been passionate about education and believes in unique approaches to education, which lead to newer heights of excellence in molding the young minds of tomorrow. His pride on a skilled and dedicated core team that he treasures and boasts of. He has maintained that education is a dedicated services. Hence, focus and involvement is extremely necessary and crucial as knowledge is getting obsolete rapidly. I welcome you, Mr. Manas. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Manas. Mr. Mansoor Ali Khan is a treasurer of KK Educational and Charitable Trust of DPS chain of schools. His pursuit for excellence through novel ideas in education has put the establishment a crest above the nest. Technology-aided learning, stress on all-round personality, development and empowering the students with academic and social skills to face the challenges of tomorrow are his areas of interest. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Mansoor. Can we applaud for Mr. Mansoor, please? Last but not the least, Mrs. Manjula Pooja Shroff. The calling came early in life for this 44-year-old educationist who runs more than 7 educational institutions for kids, differently abled children, and aspiring teachers. Names like Delhi Public School, Ahmedabad Prerna School for Dyslexic Children, Visamo Kids Foundation, the Calrox Schools and Calrox Institute of Education, Ahmedabad are pillars of the educational empire Manjula has built in the last 13 years. So over to Mrs. Monga to start the discussion. Yes, we have Mrs. Sushila Santosh and Ms. Afeen will be introducing her.
I welcome you, Ms. Sushila. Ms. Sushila is the director of Vishwa Vidyapita School, a pioneer in education. She has completed her master's in nursing from Rajiv Gandhi University, Bangalore. She has a diploma in psychology. One of the management team core members of Vishwa Vidyapita School. She took over as a director from the year 2014. She's currently pursuing her PhD in nursing. With vast knowledge and study in academics and behavioral theory for children, she has represented Karnataka on several panels and attended more than 40 conferences across India. I welcome you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this august gathering. Choosing a school for a child is one of the most important decisions parents make. The school, its teachers, curriculum, education philosophy, and values, both explicit and implicit, will affect the child's day-to-day life. It will help shape the child's personality, view of life, behavior, and destiny as an adult, and it will also deeply affect the lives of parents and the lives of families as a whole. Before we go into the alternative education, which is our topic with the panelists, I must talk about what I think education should be. I firmly believe that education should be understood as the art of cultivating the moral, emotional, physical, psychological, and spiritual dimensions of the developing child. The whole purpose of education shouldn't just hover around molding employable men and women. Rather, it should focus upon creating men and women who understand the fact that others with differences can also be right. There lies the essence of education. Now, what is alternative education? Now, most of us here do believe in it and also are practicing this practice, but we are a very small minority. Alternative education is a blanket term that comprises different pedagogical approaches, differing from the mainstream pedagogy employed in a culture that is essential about providing students with alternative environment which contributes to the optimum learning. Now, coming to the big question on whether India is ready. Alternative education? Well, I'm not quite sure about that yet. I must stress upon the fact that the system of education followed in India continues to be a byproduct of the Machiavellian era and has hardly undergone any change. It is sad but true that we continue to expect our high school students to study a minimum of 10 subjects and expect them to excel at it. I again repeat, it may not be in this place and with all of you sitting in this gathering, but I'm talking as India as a whole. We continue to use chalk and talk without the slightest realization that there is no active transaction of curriculum taking place. We continue to arrange our classrooms in rows and columns where learning does take place, but in isolation. We continue to have the same expectations from every student and thereby continue to assess them against similar standards and benchmarks. And according to me, every child listens to a different drummer. We continue to use the same teaching pedagogies year after year, not realizing that some of them have become obsolete long time ago. We continue to carry on with this iron curtain between the student and the teacher, therefore never trying to establish a personal connect with the taught. There's just some of these, many of that we continue in school till date. It is rather appalling and disheartening to know that the education sector is the only institution in India that hasn't really undergone any considerable change. Again, I repeat myself, we are a minority. I'm talking as whole in India. Tagore's Vishwa Bharati, or that matter of Krishnamurti schools, are just a few exceptions where we truly practice alternative education in India. Our country seems to be in a mad rush to produce doctors and engineers, not realizing that as a society we need many more other people. But for the aforementioned, the problem is deep-rooted and cannot be resolved overnight. Our minds have been conditioned to join the bandwagon, and the aberration is seen as an art of defiance. Therefore, I am not quite sure if a billion-plus population will be ready to see value in what Tagore, Maria Montessori, or the matter of fact what John Dewey had to say about education. As I speak today, we have a group of people have got together, and there's a marathon, a midnight marathon in Whitefield. They've taken over 7 underprivileged schools, and the marathon starts at midnight. And there is also, there are different type of marathons. One is just a few miles, one is 10 miles, and one is a 21-mile marathon. Hope I can make it to one of them. But this is just because they want to make changes in these 7 schools by bringing different pedagogies, training teachers. So if anybody wants to go and see what's happening, it's KTPO Whitefield, and the first run starts at 8 o'clock. Before I can share more on this, I would love to hear from the other panel members what they feel about alternative education, especially in the Indian context. Thank you. Renee?
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? Could I have the slides, please? Here they are. So what do you think? Do you think India is ready for an alternative education? I heard some people chattering a while longer. So come on, let's hear from you. How many of you think we need an alternative education? One hand. Anybody else? Okay, a couple of hands. I'm going to share with you something which I read when I was a teenager. For those of you who can't quite see it, it says, if I were to look over the whole world to find the country most richly endowed, with all the wealth, power, and beauty that nature can bestow, I would look to India. There are many bright dreams to be dreamt about India. There are many good deeds to be done in India, if only you would do them. Notice when it was said? Can you see at the back? 1882. Is it fair to say that it's still relevant today? Yes? No? Yes? How much would you say we can attribute to the education system? As Anu was speaking, I think it really comes back to what is the purpose of education? Or what is the purpose of life even? I believe that every one of us is born with a certain inherent talent. We have certain strengths, we have certain development needs, learning preferences. I believe the purpose of life is to be the best possible person that we can be. And the purpose of education, to help us fulfill our potential. And yes, finances are important. I spoke at an audience at Mount Carmel a couple of days ago. And I asked the students why they come to school. Any idea what the answer was? Have fun? No, I didn't meet those kids, I'm afraid. Yep, to make money. They said they come to college to learn so they can get a job, pursue a career, and make good money. Sorry, am I missing something? No? Oh, okay. 5 minutes for all of us?
5 minutes everybody.
All right, I better get off stage then. All right. So if you look at the trends in the world, because let's face it, we're trying to prepare children for a world 20 to 60 years from now, right? The world has become far more interdependent than it's ever been. So on the one hand, you've got globalization and the impact of globalization. Some things are good, such as people's power. Some things not so good, like terrorism, climate change. We're also seeing a rise in right-wing politicians, nationalists, who are basically saying, hey, we don't want globalization. We're seeing the rise of technology, of artificial intelligence. A lot of the jobs which we are familiar with today are not going to exist 20, 30, 40 years from now. So I really ask you, when you think, do we really need an alternative education? I think the question is, what kind of world are we preparing children for? And what kind of education do they require? How does India stack up? Well, guess what? No surprises. We're incredibly intolerant. We're intolerant against girls. We're intolerant against people who are less abled. We're intolerant against people who are not like us. How do we do in PISA? The results just came for 2015. Well, India participated one time. We came second last. Second last to a country, whose name I can't even pronounce. And what do? Do you know what we did after that? Yep, we stopped participating in the PISA. So we really need to move from an education which is teaching for the test to teaching for life. Mansoor was saying he didn't have slides, so I have one with DPS students here. I'm going to share an example of what we did in venture along with 10 other schools, including DPS. You know, there were a lot of concerns about how schools in Bangalore were unsafe. Well, we decided to speak to kids and said, hey, what do you think? And what we found really was they actually thought school and home was very safe. They didn't feel so safe outside. What we also found was that children from different socioeconomic segments had a very different perspective on safety. Kids from more privileged backgrounds wanted their independence. They were not willing to give it up for anything, including safety. They just said, hey, we have to be safe and we need our independence. Whereas kids from less privileged backgrounds wanted more parental involvement, as you can see there. So you can imagine what our students learned from it. Here's one example. I'm going to just share one example. Veer Menon, he graduated last year. He's training to be in the Olympics. We hope he'll be in the Olympics in Tokyo. He was one of the student committee members. As a result of this interaction, he was really, really moved because one of the children said to him, I would feel safe if my parents don't sell me like they sold my brother. That had such a significant impact on him. It actually made him go to university in the US, which not just has a sailing program, but also has a program for international relations and third world development. So it's really about changing one life at a time, one school at a time. Anu shared some examples, so I'm not really going to go into it, but I think at the core of it is our philosophy and what we believe is the purpose of life and purpose of education. And then it's a question of really rooting it in your vision, your values, and making sure your systems, processes are all aligned. One last thought. You know, I talked about the impact of globalization and some of the trends we're seeing. We also talked about how people think it's important to go to school to earn money. So really my request to all of you in this room is don't make it just about teaching kids to get jobs and make money, but also to contribute to humanity. And I guess that's the benefit of alternative education. In many ways, going back to what India had prior to the British Raj, as Anu said. So really, I'm going to leave you with that thought. Thank you.
So what we're going to do is we're giving the other panelists, we'll just talk about 5 minutes. Are we ready for alternative education? And then maybe I will ask a few questions from them, and then we open it to you all at large to ask questions to our panelists.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a long day, right? You also need an alternate to what we're doing here today. When I was looking at this topic, alternate education, I was asking myself, what does it really mean? I don't think I have an answer, but I'm going to pose a lot of questions. Possibly will lead to some conclusion at the end of 5 minutes. If we were to consider what most schools are doing today, and let's call it mainstream, then anything alternate to that, in my mind, is alternate education. So today, mainstream is really just focused on results and ranks, right?